where human insight trumps every trick. We're not hacking systems, we're hacking behaviors so you won't click. No complicated code, just tried and true brain science at play. Social engineering for good, the best defense is in your mind today.
Welcome to Phishing for Answers. The opinions expressed here are solely those of the individuals involved and do not reflect the views of their employers. Get ready, because the next live episode of Phishing for Answers is starting right now with your host, Joshua Krumbaugh, the CEO of Fish Firewall.
Psychology is the new firewall, where human insight trumps every trick. We're not hacking systems, we're hacking behavior so you won't click.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Phishing for Answers. Today I'm here with Patty Patria. She is the CIO of Babson College. Patty, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So first, Joshua, thanks for having me. Excited to be here today. So as you mentioned, I'm the CIO at Babson. I've been here about 2.5 years, but I've been the CIO in the higher ed space for about 15 years. And prior to that, I was the information security officer at another institution. So I've got a good background in security. It's one of my passions, along with AI and a few other things, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. Well, I love talking AI and cybersecurity, so I think we'll have fun. How did you get into cybersecurity and technology to begin with anyway?
Sure. So I had a very interesting journey. I actually have a bachelor's degree in history. And when I got out of college, it's not always easy to find positions with a bachelor's degree in history. So I quickly went back to school and got an MBA with a concentration in computer information systems, and started my career really as a CRM consultant for about 5 years before making the jump to higher ed, where I was more on the project management side, always working with applications, director of the PMO. And then when the massive Target breach hit 15 plus years ago, the institution I worked for
It's
was
already been 15 years.
I think it has. It was looking for a CISO, and they looked for 9 months and they couldn't find anybody. So they said, "Would you be willing to do this?" And I said, "Well, sure. It's not quite my wheelhouse, but let me educate myself and learn up and do all those types of things." So I did. And I learned a lot about cyber, took the CISSP, which was probably the hardest test I've ever taken, and networked with a lot of other great CISOs. And that's how sort of I made the leap into cyber. And then shortly after that, moved into the CIO role.
Awesome. Yeah, I always find it fascinating, just because it is, for anyone who's been in this a while, something where it just everyone's story is very much different, unless it's the government story. Because I do hear that quite a bit, where I joined the army, joined the Air Force, got told that I'm a cybersecurity person, and well, been doing it ever since. So,
Yeah.
um, all right, well, so let's jump in. One of the things that I've been just fascinated by, and really talking about it and digging into, as of late, has been social engineering for good.
Yeah.
And with that, I just really see it as those best practices on how we actually drive culture change, and how we get the users to think and act differently. And so with that, I open it to you, and I'm curious, what are some of the tips and tricks that you've learned over the years to really help get your faculty and even students potentially to engage and be a little bit more secure?
Sure. So I would say we've taken, and I've done this in a couple of institutions, taken sort of a two-pronged approach. So education is always clearly important, and we try to do newsletters monthly or every other month on whatever the relevant topic is. And it's not always phishing. It could be anything related to security. Usually in January, it's like hygiene, delete your files that you don't need. And we try to make it useful and helpful. Sometimes it's about personal security, so they know how to address cybersecurity when they're at home as well as at work. and we try to share that information. And we of course do annual cyber training as well, and we've done sort of the standard sort of off the shelf applications that you can buy for training, but those are actually not my favorite. And so we've actually pivoted to more of like custom training. And so we train our employees around like critical things. And you want to keep it short, right? Because everybody's attention span is short these days. So
Yeah.
it's like 10 minutes or less of really good training. And so we'll talk about some of the key policies. And it's usually like your acceptable use and your data classification. And we rolled into to place a new AI policy a year or so ago. And so we share that. And then we share like the latest threats that are coming around phishing or malware or any of those things along those lines. And then usually wrap it up with a few questions to make sure people understood it. The other piece, though, that I think is equally important, especially in the higher ed space, is we've got a information security, we call it a working group, but it's like a governance committee. And this is mostly director level individuals from around the rest of the institution. And we share monthly, again, updates as to what's going on with security threats and risks, and we talk about things there. And then we ask that group to take the information back to their teams and share with their teams. So we're getting one-on-one interaction with key leaders on a monthly basis, and then they're sharing that information around. And it could be, we had a conversation about DeepSeek actually last week and whether we should allow it or not allow it on our network and the risks associated with that, and then the decision is made. And so I think having those groups is really helpful with educating and sharing with your end users.
Oh, I like it. A couple things that you hit on there that I think are really key. Just creating those security champions and having them help take that message to the org. And I think one of the things that makes that so powerful is that someone in finance is going to communicate cybersecurity to finance people differently than somebody in cybersecurity will. And somebody in sales is going to communicate cybersecurity differently than people in cybersecurity will. And so I just find it interesting because it does almost help bridge the gap on a communications level as well. Um, the
Yeah.
other thing that you mentioned was making it personal or giving them tips that they can use at home. One of the I guess formulas that I've studied, it's called B equals MAP. It's a behavioral science principle. I think the guy's name was BJ Chip or something like that. But he was a famous behavioral scientist out of Stanford University, and and he created this formula for behavior change, and it stands true to this day, and it's B equals MAP. And so basically the philosophy says, well, you're never going to get behavior change unless you have all three of these ingredients. And so the first one's motivation. And
Mm.
well, how do we motivate people? Well, family, money, are some really powerful ones. So when you can tie it to their paycheck or tie it to their income or tie it to their family life, it just makes cybersecurity much more real. Um, Another trick that I've always had fun with is along that line is when you do give them that information, you can give them homework like, hey, now go take this home to your elderly parents, go take this home to your children. And when they do, they end up becoming that cybersecurity expert at home because they're the ones teaching. Now, anytime their family members have questions about cybersecurity, who do they go to?
Mhm.
And it changes their thinking fundamentally just because they went home and talked about cybersecurity. And then the next one is ability. So that's just how easy are we making it? You know, for the longest, cybersecurity made everything harder. And
Yeah.
now finally, we figured out that when the easiest option is the most secure option, it becomes the default option. It seems pretty basic, but it took us a while to figure that one out. And then finally, it's prompting and prompting are those reminders. So it can be the newsletter, it can be workforce safety posters in the hallway, it can be continuous training in some form. It can be whatever, but prompting is one of those critical elements that I find that we don't do enough and the more frequently we prompt, the
Right.
more security aware our people become.
Yeah, I love that. I hadn't heard of that formula before, but we do change management every day, all the time, it seems like. And so those are very three great things to reiterate in getting people to change effectively.
Yeah, it's when I saw it too, I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I've been talking about micro training forever,
Yeah,
but it didn't make, or I guess my argument for why we needed it wasn't nearly as compelling as this. And so yeah, the same. I as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So another aspect of all of this is gamification. What have you found? I mean, do you find gamification helps? Have you used it at all? What formats have you used it in? Just stuff like that.
yeah, I think it does. We have not had the opportunity to use gamification much at all yet. We do sort of iterative training. So we do phishing emails to our community a couple times a year. And when somebody doesn't get the fish right and they click the fish, they get a video to try to educate them a little bit and share. But I think gamification, if you've got the time and capability to build out things, is great. It's just not everybody has that time or capability.
Oh, like, yeah, no, absolutely. I think that to me, the critical element of gamification in security awareness is just around phishing.
Hmm.
I think it's critical around phishing because I have seen phishing be a very negative, very bad experience for employees within
Right.
companies. I
Yep.
mean, GoDaddy is famous for that. Was it back in 2020? Or 2021 at Christmas time, they sent a fish to all of their employees offering a bonus, and a lot of their employees fell for it. And there wasn't the immediate where they knew they had made the mistake, so it made it that much worse. And so
Right.
as a result, they got a lot of bad publicity for it, and people were upset, and I think rightfully so. I think phishing is critical, but I do think that it's equally as critical how we do phishing. And so when I say gamification, I think it's important there. I don't think it has to be anything very sophisticated. I
Yeah.
think it can be as simple as, hey, we're going to make a game out of this. I'm going to send you a fish. It's your job to spot it.
Yeah.
And when you tell them ahead of time and you make a game out of it, and immediately you make sure that they realize their mistake instead of putting a cloned login page there or something like that. That's where I think it makes it more effective.
Yeah, I
Um,
completely agree with you. I think that's the way to go. And we do sort of do that. We'll let people know. And it's not a punitive thing if you don't get it. If the same person is clicking on the same fish 5 times in a row, we might, after having a conversation with them, after click 2 or 3, maybe then have a conversation with their manager as a follow-up. But you have to let people reach out to you if they don't understand, ask questions. And actually, I have people on our leadership team that will email me, is this fish at whatever time of the day? I'm like, yep, that is. Thank you for checking. Delete it and don't do anything with it. And so to let people know it's all right to reach out. And we have a phishing email where we tell people send it to fish so that we can look at it, and make sure we see the trends that are going on as well is a really critical factor.
oh, absolutely. I think that to me, that reporting metric is the most critical metric in security awareness. Fish click rates are great, but report rates to me indicate culture much better than anything else. And the
Right.
higher we can get our report rates, the more security aware we have, or more security aware the group is. The other thing that I've discovered is that you don't have to get to 100%. When you get to, I don't know what the number is, but let's say 75%, it's somewhere around there. The crowd will help push everyone else, because people don't want to be left out. They tend to be part of the crowd, and so you can use things like, hey, 87% of the people in the organization have done their training. please complete yours. And it drives people to get that done. I think things like that can help make our efforts more effective as well.
Yeah, absolutely agreed.
So let's talk AI a little bit. It's changing the landscape, I mean, significantly. I don't even think computers are going to look the same in 5 years. But I think it'll be more like an echo device that we just talked about.
Agreed.
uh, and we're going to have supercomputers on our desk. I'm so excited about that, but I digress. Are you excited about the $3,000 supercomputer?
I am, although I got to tell you, like the supercomputing power from my iPhone in my pocket is just as good for me right now. But
That's
especially with the
true.
new AI built into it, I just got a new one, so I'm looking forward to testing that out.
Oh, yeah, so you got one with the new AI. That actually was appealing to me because I do it every few years, and the one I have is fine. But as soon as I heard about the chip, I was like,
Yep.
"I need a new phone." Um, so AI is changing the threat landscape. What are some of the things that you're concerned about as it pertains to AI?
Lots. So, my institution at Babson, we're sort of an all-in on AI, which is actually very unusual for higher ed because there's a lot of higher eds that are still taking wait and see approach, some that are dabbling, but we've been working very closely with AI for a year and a half. And a year and a
Nice.
half ago, when we started to integrate it, we have faculty that integrate it with coursework, and we were integrating it with operations. We quickly, went from okay, the open AI tools are great, but they're not secure. And so I think we moved in January of 24 to having an AI policy about using closed AI versus open AI. And we deployed a closed AI system for all of our faculty, staff, and students. And we said anything that's proprietary needs to be in the closed system. Of course, we're an institute research or a college or university. So anything that is done on the academic side, if you want to use open tools, even though they're not secure, you're allowed to do that. But we came up with that. We also leverage tools on our network to see which AI tools are in use because some are obviously more risky than others. And so we can see when tools are in use on our network. And when DeepSeek came out about a month or two ago, we started to look at it and assess, and we can see usage patterns. And of course, there's giant risks of that with all your data being stored in China and likely accessed by the Chinese government. And so we actually have conversations around that with our trustees on our audit committee as to the risks and what we should be doing, and with our information security working group. And so, yes, a big conversation. The other thing we're also doing relative to AI from a security perspective is we've sort of adopted the EU AI Act model, right? Where they got that lovely pyramid where the stuff at the top, which is really highly sensitive, you should never engage in with AI. Right below that, there's another tier where if it affects sort of livelihood or your ability to graduate from a college or university, that's really high level. We try to stay out of that, and we work in the lower risk areas just because we're not staffed and ready to be able to handle the high risk stuff. So I would say those are sort of the main areas where we look at AI and security and risk right now.
And let's be honest, access controls on closed AI systems are still not where they need to be. And that's another issue with putting any sort of really highly sensitive data in them right now.
Exactly. Yeah, like our most highly sensitive data, we don't even let people put that in AI. So
Yeah, I agree.
we follow our data classification policy. The super high risk stuff it is not allowed to be used with AI.
Now, are you blocking just like DeepSeek or considering it, or are you looking at all of the potentially more malicious ones like Quen 32B and Falcon and ones like that as well?
So DeepSeek is the primary one, and we have the discussion to start to block that. We're going through the channels to make sure we do it properly. We haven't started to look at blocking other things yet. Again, as a college and university, we try to be open, but we are looking at, as part of our larger zero trust strategy, SSE software, where we can actually have software so that if somebody is trying to put something highly sensitive or proprietary, we can block it at the user level versus blocking the entire application. And actually, that's our strategy going forward, is the more zero trust and trying to make sure that any of our data isn't leaking out to places where it shouldn't be going.
I'm actually really excited about DLP as it pertains to new AI capabilities in these LLMs. So
Yeah.
I expect that that'll probably be Google, but I expect we're going to see some really good technologies around that in the relatively near future.
Yeah, I would imagine as well. I think the most challenging thing is the AI field is changing so rapidly. It's so hard to stay on top of it for anybody, even when you have some resources that are looking at it. But it's a fast moving train.
Well, I mean, for example, Google just out like took the leader position or the number one position in multiple categories overnight, and almost no one knows about it, and and is talking about it because it's just it's moving that quickly. Where there's a new AI daily. Heck, we just released one over the weekend.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, it's all these new use cases, and every new AI model that's trained on a different use case. To me, it's just exciting, and I think DLP will be one. We just did one on email that we released, but I expect that there's going to be some really cool stuff. We've already seen one for like blue teaming.
Yeah,
There is one for red teaming, although I have no idea if it's any good. But all of these things I think are really just really exciting.
I
Um,
completely agree.
so I guess moving on to a different topic, one of the things that I've seen a lot lately is what I would call role-based phishing,
Mhm.
where they're targeting my finance team or my developers or my executives, and they know who they are. They know what their role is. They know what the organizational structure is somehow. And they're using that to craft some pretty realistic and difficult or complex phishing attacks. Are you seeing some of the same?
So yes, we are, and we've seen sort of over the last, I would say, 2 months, a change in attacks. So the phishing attacks now are starting to compromise sort of MFA, man in the middle attacks, and the hackers are getting more sophisticated. They're using more sophisticated technology. So we're doing two things. One, particularly the finance team and the executives, we try to educate them to be aware, but we're moving to passkey MFA, which is
We
fish
just
resistant.
did that, and my users love it because
Yeah.
it's so much easier for them once it's implemented. The
Once it's implemented,
implementation phase, your help desk is going to hate you.
yeah, right. And when you have a large distributed population like they do with both, students and employees, it's a little bit more challenging, and you got multiple
Can I
types of devices,
imagine?
Macs and PCs, some on Windows 10, some on Windows 11. It makes it a little bit more of a challenge, but that's our goal too, is to move in that direction because we've seen it, we're worried about it, and we want to prevent it.
See, passkeys to me are one of those great examples of cybersecurity done right. It
Yes.
makes it easier. For so long, we've been the department of no, the department that makes everything more difficult. So I'm really excited about things like this. We implemented a different technology last year for our developers that allows them to change any setting on their computer without having local admin access.
That's great.
And we automatically harden it overnight. So every night, it doesn't matter what they've changed, they're gonna have to change it again tomorrow, but they can do their job without having to go and ask for some change to be made. So, to me, that's the type of stuff that we can do. We did an app store, where they can install anything from our app store. It's fully managed so that everything stays updated, and no one needs local admin that way.
That's great.
Yeah, I think more. I think the more of that we can do, the better. And I really do like seeing the change where the mantra seems to be more of we need to be business enablers. We have to know what the business objective is. We have to get out there and talk to people and build relationships and create security champions. I don't know that I've seen that as strong or as prevalent as it is now.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think the security champions particularly are helpful because when we're educating them and we're sharing, "Here's the risks," they're like, "Yeah, we're concerned about that too." So we're gonna share with our community not to do something or to make sure they're aware of something or to share the changes that we as a working group are implementing, and it's hugely helpful.
So probably last topic because we're running a little low on time, but one of the things that I'm fascinated by are cognitive biases. And there are these little mental shortcuts for the audience that we all use every single day to quickly make decisions.
Mhm,
I bring that up because those cognitive biases are largely what's exploited in phishing emails or any social engineering attack to get us to do things that we shouldn't do. But the opposite side of that is there's a lot of cognitive biases that can help in making our awareness training programs more effective. One of the ones that I find interesting is framing effect, where the way you say something can make a very big difference in how it's interpreted. And let's take the phrase security is everyone's responsibility. Common phrase, we say it all the time. It's a good phrase, right?
yep.
So, could we improve it though by changing it from security is everyone's responsibility to security is your responsibility?
We could.
Because we framed it all of a sudden, because it's no longer a group thing, they can't say, "Oh, IT's got that." It's my responsibility, so I have to get it. So I think little things like that are really my call because I went to school for marketing,
Yep, yep.
and and I found that there's a lot of correlations because in marketing, you're trying to influence behavior. You're
Mhm.
trying to refine your communications to make them more effective. And so I found a lot of correlations there, and I've been, but one of my mantras has been really, we've got to have more marketing in cybersecurity because I do think it just makes it that much more uh, effective when we can, better communicate these things.
I totally agree. And actually, on the effective communication or more communication front, I was chatting with a colleague a couple weeks ago whose company had built a bot to generate information security awareness newsletters automatically based on relevant topics. And then if you plugged in how to do it with a cognitive bias to make people improve it, I mean, that's a win-win. You get great content automated in a fast way, and then you can free up your staff to fight the
Like
chaos that they see on a daily basis.
I like it. I've been automating so much stuff. Actually, when this podcast is over, I'll download the video, throw it through my automation tool, and in 10 minutes, I'll have 15 video clips from it, short
That's
form.
great. Yeah.
So, but no, I think that with AI, we're going to see a lot more automation because anyone can write code nowadays. You don't
Right.
have to be a developer. You just have to understand how to architect things a little bit, and even that you can ask for guidance and learn from the AI. So
Mhm. Very
um,
true.
I expect we'll see a lot of that. Another cognitive bias that I've always found really useful is social proof. So whenever somebody reports something that's a little bit higher risk, one of those uh, you get fish reported every day, but there's always that one that you get maybe once a month, once a quarter that you see and you're like, and it just scares you. You're like, oh my God,
Mhm.
I'm so glad they didn't fall for that. So when I see those fish, I love to send it to the whole company, forward it
Mhm.
out and just praise that person for reporting because it helps to encourage reporting across the board. But then also because I mentioned the threat and that it came from Susan in accounting, now all of a sudden this threat is no longer an anonymous threat hitting some, company that I see on TV. It's a threat that actually hits somebody that I know, and it becomes very much or that much more real.
So that's a really interesting strategy. I hadn't heard of that before with calling out the person who identified it, but I think it's a great idea because you're right. The really large events that are hitting the bulk of our population, we do send out to the community to make them aware of it after we've had, 15 or so people click on something within the last 5 minutes. The message goes out, but but to attribute that to a person, you're right, adds a level of realism to it and highlights the person who reported it as well.
I agree. Well, we're almost out of time. Any, well, final bits of wisdom for our viewers today?
My final bits of wisdom is I think security has to be a combination sort of the tactical and the human. You got to have good, strong tactical security in place. You've got to have great security engineers and CISOs that are monitoring and then working to educate your community. And if you can do all of that and do it well, I think you're in a much better place.
Awesome. I agree. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you joining us remotely, we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a
All
great
right.